Alright, Mission Needs Statement Guide, Department of Energy G413317, June 20th, 2008, non-measure sensitive. This guide describes suggested non-mandatory approaches meeting requirements. Guides are not requirements. Documents are not to be construed with requirements in an audit, any audit or appraisal for compliance with the parent policy, order, notice, or manual. Department of Energy, United States, GC 20585. Initiated by Office Management. Purpose of the guide provides offer the mission with the needs statement identified by the Department of Energy 04133A of the Program Project Management, the Acquisition Capital Asset dated July 28, 2006. Suggested content definition example of written clearly statement that is support of the acquisition executive decision to initiate exploration of the ops and fulfill capability gap, which may include capital asset acquisition. Scope. A mission needs statement with the primary document supporting the acquisition executive decision to initiate the exploration of options to fulfill a capability gap, including but not limited to the acquisition of new capital assets. B. Mission needs statement of development occurred during the project initiation phase, which program would identify the capability gap between the current capability and the capacity of those required to achieve the goals articulated in the strategic plan or in Department of Energy target enterprise. The architecture for the capital asset project mission needs statement the translation gap of the high level requirement that only can be met with the material means. Mission needs statement is summarized the analytical process used the program to evaluate, define, need. C. With all projects over $5 million required to have the defined approved mission for the Department of Energy 0413A requires mission needs statement to be expected cost of a project will not exceed $20 million. The document provides guidance for creating mission for the needs statement of fulfillment of the Department of Energy 04133A meets expectations appropriate approval authority of the guide. It's organized in alignment with the categories mission needs statement of content paragraph 4. Mission needs statement. The mission needs statement of the document identified the capability gap between the current state of the program mission with the mission make plan. Its first step in the identification and execution for the Department of Energy project with the critical decision process starts with identification and approval of the mission needs to continue through the project baseline of development of finite design, construction, and closeout. C. The mission needs statement of an engineering study proposed solution to the capability gap of the mission. And however, it anticipated that before a mission needs statement is submitted with the pre-conceptual level of engineering technical analysis will be developed. 2. 1. To explore the scope of the gap. 2. To identify the potential their safety, security, and risk implementations. 3. Identify rough order magnitude range size 50% to 100%. For example, the project cost the schedule based on the upper bounds of the rougher order of the magnitude estimate. D. Initial rough order of magnitude range estimate is only to provide the decision-making frame of reference relative to the potential future pre-swap for the schedule of the project if it could entail the initial rough order with magnitude range estimated project cost schedules are not preliminary cost schedule estimate. Project cost schedules are not preliminary cost schedules. Estimates of the project since for the non-particular capital assets alternative have been selected, nor are rough orders magnitude range estimates bad budget quality data since they are likely to change with the program development's more detailed project requirements. Therefore, no judgment regarding project performance relative to the rough order magnitude range assessment should be made. If the rough order magnitude rough estimate project cost exceeds $750 million and an environmental cleanup project exceeding $1 billion result of the potential major system project, a mission validation independent project review and conducted in conjunction with the development of the mission needed statement is required by the Department of Energy 04133A. Pre-conceptual analysis of the independent project review should be referenced and readily available to supporting data to the mission needed statement. 4. Suggested mission needed statement and content of the suggested length of the mission needs is no more than 15 pages of content. Should include title page, mission needs statement, title, designation, major, non-major, acquisition project, submission date, originator, including organizational phone number, and 5. Approving official's name and signature. B. Statement of mission needs. Provide a clear, concise paragraph, a few sentences that lays out the essential summary of the mission needs section of the mission needs statement. Dedicated to defining capability gap should describe the gap between the current state of the program mission and the mission plan. C. Alignment. Describe how the stated mission needs to fit with the overall strategy for the accomplishing and advancing both the department and the program's strategic plan and mission. Describe the priority fulfilling the mission needed relative to the other program projects involved with the program office of the department and relative to the other project programs on site with the installation, laboratory, etc. C. Site internal, external drivers for the mission need with the legal ruling site. Legal ruling, statute, regulation, international agreement that earmark presidential, congressional, secretary, directional priority. 4. Capability gap. 1. Clearly describe the gap shortcoming of the mission needs statement that addressing terms of the operational function, performance, capability of the technology, opportunity, or service. 2. The mission needs statement is a description of mission defined with the desired endpoint, but is not a contract statement of work. Therefore, the description capability gap the terms of the construction of physical systems, decontamination, decommissioning, environmental restoration, procurement of the piece of equipment, construction facility, or other specifically material end item not appropriate for the mission needs statement. Mission needs statement should include the following. Each, however, the effort to create the intended capability could be confirmed to output, production, quality, level of waste, shipments of building, decontamination, decommissioning, and whether the need to be evolved over time. B, summarize why facilities, equipment, and services currently existing or being acquired by within the department, other government agencies, public organizations, public entities, private entities, and international buyers are not sufficient to address the gap. C. Describe the benefits may accrue with the closing with the capability gap, more efficient operation, including safety, lower operational costs, and other savings. Discuss the strategic risk to the overall mission of the Department of Energy with the not filling with the capability gap. E. Describe the impact of the program's ability to perform the mission capability shortfall that is not resolved, including the time frame when its impact would occur. Describe the impacts of safety, health, environment, security, capacity, operation, maintenance costs, productivity, efficiency of the factors appropriate when the capability shortfall is not resolved. G. Identify high-level interdependencies with an external program. Other missions need the capability that meet with the impact or may benefit with the addressing of the mission's need with interface with existing planned acquisition requirements of capability with existing future systems or in cooperative opportunities such as program addressing similar with the need of another department or component. E. Approach. Briefly describe how considered will be analyzed potential strategies to meet with a new mission need, but it should include the description and ongoing study with the listing of the potential technical regulatory alternatives or study approach, engineering study, pilot scale projects. Detailed alternative analysis will be conducted to support critical decision 1. Therefore, a section should summarize the plan approach to conduct the analysis. 2. Identify the mission level of assumption that may be necessary to complete with the project mission. 3. Briefly describe the functional, technical, operational, staffing, regulatory, safety, financial constraint that could apply with the exploration acceptance of the potential solution satisfying the mission's need. 4. Discussing in general any nuclear safety regards and security issues that will need to be considered to be addressed in the mission needs. This discussion should also present all safety considerations that have been taken into account to develop the mission needs in accordance with Section 3.1 of the Department of Energy Standard 1189, integrating safety into the design process, dated in March 2008. Mission needs statement should communicate expectations of the execution safety activity during the design process. Have resource and schedule forecast provide rougher order of magnitude estimate of the project office schedule range with acquire various capability alternatives for the rest of the statement that the missions need. Extent possible to identify the estimated dates for the official year only, with being more subsequent critical decision. 3. Support programmatic strategic planning after the budget required for the 5-year planning period. Identify with the currently projected for the rough order magnitude resource of the planning funding profile of the breakout with the projected engineering design fund explanation funding needs for the emergency with the critical decision 0 to the critical decision 1 matter projection should be used at the high end of the rough order of the magnitude estimate for project to provide upper bound estimate for the project. 5. Mission needs statements. Approval process of the Department of Energy 04133A required for the official program analysis evaluation officer for the chief of the financial office review provide a recommendation regarding approval of the mission needs statements when the expected cost exceeds $100 million. To initiate the review of the program and secretarial officer for the deputy of the administrator with the appropriated federal headquarters program manager for the designated writing with the program security officer. Secretarial officer for the deputy of the administrator of the program analysis evaluation submit for the mission needs for the director of the program analysis evaluation with a copy to the Energy System Acquisition Advisory Board Secretariat. See the submittal of the mission needs statements of the program analysis evaluation director signify federal program managers responsible for the proposed project endorsed for the mission need. For the program, secretarial officer of the deputy administrator may also submit draft of the needs statement of the program analysis evaluation prior to the official submission with the informal review and development assistance. See all other mission needs needs and statements were expected to cost for the project required for the capital assessment with not exceed $100 million submitted to the program secretarial office of the deputy administrator with approval of the determination. 6. Attachment sample. The provided samples for the guidance only with not to be used with the reference information sample to extract with the existing mission needs statements are altered to fit the suggested content contained in the mission needs statement guide. Reference Department of Energy 04133A Program Project Management Acquisition Capital Assets dated July 28, 2006. Other guides are the 413 guides. Point of context: Office of the Chief Financial Officer, Office of the Program Analysis, 202-586-4171. Office of Management, Office of Engineering Construction Management, OECM, 202-586-1784. Energy Facility Contractors, EFCOG 858-792-603-1. National Nuclear Security Administration, Office of Project Management Support, 202-586-5555. Office of Environmental Management, Office of Project Management Oversight, 202-586-7709. Office of Science, Office of Project Assessment, 202-586-5430. Alright, samples for Statement of the Mission Needs section. No, provided samples of the guidance only but not used with the reference information. Samples were extracted with the existing mission and needs statement that altered or fit with the suggested content with the contained with the mission needs statement guide. Example 1. Expansion of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to be 1 million barrels, essential for the draft of the mission's need with the increasing energy security associated with the growing U.S. consumption import dependency. To carry out the mission under the Emergency Energy Preservation Conservation Act to protect the nation from the adverse impact of the petroleum oil supply disruption, comply with the nation's obligation over the Internal National Energy Program, AIP. Example 2, the need exists for disposition of excessive gaseous diffusion buildings at site, including disposition process equipment, structure of the ancillary building, disposition, contaminated soil under the building, fulfillment of the need accomplished with the Department of Energy, specific responsibility under the 1992 National Energy Policy Act, Title 11, Chapter 28, Decontamination, Decomposition. Example 3, the site does not have capability to treat, contact, handle large package mixed low-level waste or remote handling mixed low-level waste to meet the Resource Conservation Recovery Act requirements, Hazardous Waste Management Act requirements was acceptance criteria for the disposal on-site of existing mixed waste disposal trenches, the existing environmental restoration disposal facility or future integrated disposal facility capacities are also required to process the control handling large package transuranic waste or RH remotely handled transuranic waste to meet acceptance for the criteria to dispose of the waste isolation pilot plant. Suggestion for alignment section. A note: provide samples for the guidance only with the not to be used with the reference for the information sample to describe with the existing mission with the needs statement that altered to fit with the suggested content of the contained with the mission needs statement, the guide. Example 1, Strategic Petroleum Reserve expansion. Strategic Petroleum Reserve mission. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve mission is to provide the United States with the adequate strategic and economic protection against the disruption of oil supply. The 1975, the Energy Policy and Conservation Act for the authorized creation of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and this act with the Congress declared with the policy of the government to maintain the stockpile of the crude oil with petroleum product with the purpose of diminishing U.S. vulnerability to effect with the disruption, public supply with the meeting of the U.S. obligations under the International Energy Program. The Energy Policy Conservation Act provided with the authorization to reserve up to 1 billion barrels. However, the current implementation has only been 700 million barrel level. Strategic fit mission needs since the establishment of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the 1975, both the nation's oil import of the risk to oil supply distribution has increased significantly. U.S. petroleum imports have more than doubled since 1975. The U.S. crude import dependency has risen from 33% of the 1975 to over 66% in the 2005. The Energy Information Administrative Project for the Annual Energy Outlook of 2007 continued growth in both the nation's petroleum consumption and foreign import dependency through 2030. Use vulnerability petroleum supply distribution increased dramatically since the 1975 due to the increase of the terrorism, world petroleum demands, hurricane with the 9/11, the world terrorism has increased in its targeted international energy supply with the petroleum demands emerging from the Asian nation with China and India have almost eliminated excess oil production capacities of the worldwide. Hurricanes have also increased the effect of using oil, both U.S. oil production and refining over the Gulf Coast. The expansion of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the 1 billion barrels aligns with the 2006 with the Department of Energy Strategic Plan Theme 1 Energy Security Strategic Goal 1.1, energy diversity of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve must be large enough to satisfy the nation's energy as well as serve the National Defense Reserve. Expand the Strategic Petroleum Reserve with 1 billion barrels will directly contribute to enhance energy security with a large reserve of the necessary to drive the nation's economic secure vulnerability associated with the growing U.S. consumption creep the important dependency of the mission needs also directly contribute to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve mission, providing the United States with adequate strategic and economical protection against disruption in oil supplies. Alright, priority of the mission needs. Strategic Petroleum Reserve expansion is a presidential priority announced in 2007 under the State of the Union to drive the President's goal of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the 1 billion barrel of the 2019. However, the funding of the problematic order of the year of the target for the expansion have not yet provided, so for the current level of the funding will be engaged in expansion to occur in the 2050 within 2009-2013 corporate program review. Integrated priority list of the Office of the Official Fossil of Energy. 1% of the expansion activities is funded with the target. The remaining 99% expansion activities are funded over target. Internal and external driver, the need of the expansion of Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the 1 billion barrels is based on the following driver. The expansion for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the 1 billion barrels is the legal requirement of the Energy Policy Act of 2005. An expansion in reverse is necessary to comply with the President Bush's National Energy Plan to ensure the Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the protection is maintained. An expansion of the reserve is necessary to continue with the U.S. membership and complying with the Internal National Energy Program. The need for the expansion of Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the 1 billion barrels has reviewed occurred for the Secretary of Energy, White House, the Principal Coordinating Committee, and the President of the United States. Example 2, Plutonium Disposition Program. Youth the mission of the Department of Energy, Office of Environmental Management, to complete with a safe cleanup of the environmental legacy of the 5 decades of the nuclear weapons development of the government sponsor for the nuclear energy research. The Savannah River site is currently in the stored large quantity of the plutonium material with the defining the disposition path of the mission. Plutonium verification is provided with the disposition pathway of the Department of Energy except the plutonium at the Savannah River site to make proliferation resistant standard of the disposal of the criteria of the nation's monitored geological repository. Strategic fit of the mission needs by establishing plutonium verification capabilities of the SRF, the Savannah River site with the Department of Energy would ensure the defined disposition path of the material with the geological repository. Plutonium verification project is critical to meet the Department of Energy's strategic goal of providing reasonable resolution, the permanent disposal of the nation's excess high-level radioactive material of the waste to enable the cleanup of the environmental management site with 2025 of the project. Directly support the Department of Energy 2006 strategic plan goal for 1, completely cleaning up the contaminated nuclear waste weapons manufacturing testing sites across the United States. Priority of the mission need of the Plutonium Vivet program must complete operation end of fiscal year of the 2018 to coincide with the defense of the waste process of the facility, the operating deactivating schedule of the result of the time sensitive of the acquisition 1 year delay and with the PU-VITM program extending the operating life of the K area complexity cost of approximately $50 million, including site support, safety guards, and security. In 2-year delay, PU-VITM will extend the operating life of the K area complex with a high level of waste system and the cost of approximately $430 million. Internal and external drivers. In 1997, the Department of Energy relieved the record of the decision of the storage disposition of the weapons usable fissile material with a record of the decision called for the 2-pronged disposition strategy for both recurrent reactor and burning and mobilization would pursue with the PU. The disposition strategy also flexible with the disposition of the plutonium, since materials for disposition could be directed to the best of the disposition means. Impurities of certain fees would make a deposition reactor fuel impractical. The remaining of the record of the document decision storage surplus to plutonium documented with the decision of the Consolidated Rocky Flat Plutonium Storage or SRS. DOE has completed with the transfer of plutonium for the Rocky Flats for the SRS. Public Law 107 to 107, Section 3155, disposition surplus defense of plutonium Savannah reverse site with the Aiken, South Carolina requires a disposition pathway out of South Carolina for all plutonium transferred SRS. Sample guide, sample for capability gap section. Provide sample for the guidance only, but not use the reference information sample to extract with the existing mission needs statement that alter to fit with the suggested content with containment of the mission needs statement and guide. Example 1, Strategic Petroleum Reserve Expansion Capability Gap defined as data import protection with the energy policy of the Conservation Act of 1970. Congress specified with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve should initially size to provide approximately 90 days of the net U.S. petroleum imports equivalent to the highest 3 consecutive months of the imports over the prior 2 years of during the development of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Import protection reached a high level of 118 days in 1985, since the import protection level has fallen substantially due to the rate of the increase of the U.S. petroleum consumption and import dependency. In 2000, the President Natural Energy Plan expressed the decline of the major problem of direct the security energy worked closely with the Congress to ensure that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve protection level is mandated. In December 2001, President directed the security energy field with the reserve that is for the current capacity of 700 million barrels with the interest of the energy security of the reserve that achieves the target of 700 million barrels with the 2005 to provide the nation with approximately 60 days of emergency stock. Energy Information Administration projected with the continued growth of both the nation's petroleum consumption form and the import dependency with the route 2020 and 2030. Based on the EIA Annual Energy Outlook of 2007, the import protection of the 700 million barrel reserve was deteriorated in 52 days by 2020 and 43 days by 2030. Expansion of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to 1 billion barrels would be necessary to maintain the Strategic Petroleum Reserve import protection, achieving 72 days in 2020 and 61 days in 2030. Are the potential capabilities to cover the Department of Energy operated to maintain the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? The DOE is the correct agency that created the positive the capability of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve expansion. For the Department of Energy has no other means to address the capability gap other than initiating completing activity as a result of the expansion. However, the private entities have the potential to help fill the gap. The gap can be addressed with an increase in private industry stockpile that can be potentially accomplished, providing incentive with the industry to increase inventories. Hart benefit from the closing of the gap in 2005 with the cost benefit analysis of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve that decided to initiate to determine whether increase of the size of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve would expected benefits exceeding the cost of the estimate tool was conducted using Oak Ridge National Laboratory risk model with the probabilistic tool of measuring impact with the serve of the crude oil product market disruption for the U.S. economy stated as assessed for the added energy security provided with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve size up to 1.5 billion. Barrels drawn down rates to up to 11 million barrels per day compared to those with the incremental cost of developing a larger reserve. The results were under base case assumption of the expansion up to the beyond 1.5 billion barrels yield positive economic benefits. Expansion of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve from 700 to 1 billion barrels was estimated to provide expected net benefits of $14 billion to the nation. For sensitive case of the expected net income benefit of the 1 billion barrel reserve range from 2.5 to 27 billion. The expected benefits of 1 billion barrels Strategic Petroleum Reserve far exceed the expected benefits provided with the 1990 size analysis shown below. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is the cornerstone of the U.S. energy security program. The U.S. is and will continue to be foreseeable future heavily dependent on the foreign petroleum. Furthermore, OPEC will continue to dominate with the petroleum supply of the world oil markets foreseeable future. Vulnerability of the U.S. restricted its dependency on the petroleum imports. OPEC's control of the petroleum supplies makes the mission of the reserve very important. The U.S. needs to have a strong Strategic Petroleum Reserve to significantly reduce the impact of the U.S. economy to event of the petroleum supply distribution, provided the strong deterrent and reduce the probability politically motivated supply disruptions, assisting protecting overall interest of the U.S. and its partners under the agreement of the International Energy Plan, support the fuel needs of the U.S. military when needed, so the Strategic Petroleum Reserve must be sufficient in size to draw down capability to meet the nation's energy security needs both today and in the future. Impact if the gap did not resolve. If CDO is not authorized to support the project conclusion fiscal year of 2008, the expansion of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve with a delay, but the result will be not adhesion to the legal requirements set forth in APAC, non-support of the Presidential National Energy Policy Plan, in violation of IE Treaty with respect to the 90-day stockpile obligation after 2022. increase strategic petroleum reserve with the drawdown capability of the proportion of the U.S. import rate, with an increased likelihood of the disruption and exhausting of the reserve prior to the resolution crisis, leaking the reserve, leaving the reservoir ineffectual during the prolonged period of refill, increased likelihood of failure to use the reserve in a timely manner out of the concerned oil with the more critically needed later. High level of interdependencies of the Department of Defense currently owns approximately 6 million barrels of crude oil with a strategic petroleum reserve to be used solely with the national defense purpose. At the end of the fiscal year of the 1993, the Department of Defense operation of the Act for the Public Law 102-396, Section 9149, $125,625 was appropriated to purchase oil from the storage of the reserve of the pound of the presidential finding under Section 171 D of the Energy Policy Conservation Act recommendation. Secretary of Defense, this oil is to be distributed to the Department of Defense for its use and sale. The exchange of the oil can be delivered from the reserve directly to the refiners where the DoD contract supply military fuel. This secure government-owned reserve affords for the President much more flexibility considering the undertaking an unlimited range of military options would be case. Critical military fuel requirements were dependent solely upon the world's oil market supply. Example 2, plutonium disposition capability gap. Permanent Energy had planned on constructing a mixed oxy-fuel fabrication facility and a plutonium immobilization plant at the SRS. In 2002, the Department of Energy decided to continue with the mixed oxide fuel fabrication facility, but cancel the plutonium immobilization plant due to the budgetary constraint of the left of approximately 13 metric tons of the environmental management-owned plutonium materials without a defined disposition path. The potential capability because the Department of Energy operates to maintain nuclear weapon stockpile, including the production and the ultimate disposition of the stockpile, except for the material of the Department of Energy, with the correct agent to develop the plutonium disposition capability for identified active plutonium. The Department of Energy has no other means for the draft of the capability gap other than initiating and completing activities that resolve the disposition of plutonium through the geological repository. Benefits from closing the gap. The National Academy of Sciences Committee of the International Security Arms and Controls issued a report in 1994 with the continued stockpiling of the weapons usable physical material of the United States and Russia representing the clear present danger for the national and international security. As the report of the National Academy of Sciences identified several objectives of the United States with towards the disposition of the excess physical material of the National Academy of Science. Also recommended plutonium for the disposition should be roughly inaccessible for the weapons used with a much larger growing quantity of the plutonium that exists in spent fuel for the commercial reactor. The metric for the degree of the indispensable to become known as spent fuel standard. Disposition 13 MT with excess of the plutonium V with the verification will result in the disposition of plutonium theft of the proliferation resistant form, reduce cost of the long-term save with the secured storage of the immobilized material, reduce potential proliferation, excess plutonium, security threats for the material, a limited disposition material in accordance with the government agreements for the legal requirement to remove the material from the SRS, impact of the Savannah River site, impact if the gap is not resolved. Based on the Department of Energy decision, cancel the plutonium immobilization plant with the 2002 for the environmental management has approximately 13 MT with the plutonium into approximately 25 MT bulk materials without defined disposition path. Large amount of the inventory stored in the Savannah River site, but the material would continue to be stored on site with the intent of the cost of the safeguard security of the related storage costs totaling approximately $35 million per year. With eventual disposition of the material would be required in accordance with the legal drive of the ongoing storage of the material could eventually conflict with the Savannah River site with the program decision related with the hot HL water treatment plan facility closure. High-level interdependencies. The plutonium VIT concept of reliable spent fuel standard of the establishment of the proliferation-resistant packaging with except for the plutonium concept relied on the high radiation nature and mobilized HLW and barrier to prevent tampering and intrusion into the disposal containing the self-protection feature can be obtained from immobilized HLW producing the DWFP. Therefore, petroleum viticaceous concept is dependent on the DWPF with the provided immobilized HLW independent design feature. Alright, samples for the approach section. Note, provide samples for the guidance are only not to be used with the reference information. Samples describe the existing mission and the needs statement that's altered to fit the suggested content contained in the mission needs statement guide. Sample 1, strategic petroleum reserve expansion, plan approach for the conducting the CD1 altering with the analysis of the outline with the mandate of the energy policy of the Act of 2005 with the regulatory Secretary of the Energy to complete with the environmental review of the site selection process for the expansion of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. 1 billion barrels, Section 303 of the Energy Policy Act. More than 1 year after the enactment, the Secretary of the Energy shall complete with a proceeding of the select from site with the Secretary has previously studied site with the necessary to enable the acquisition. Secretary with the fully authorized volume of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Secretary of the Energy shall first consider the given the presence of the 5 years 5 assistance address of the draft of the EIS of 1992, with the Secretary in the discretion may select with the site with the proposed with the state whether the site has been previously studied with the Secretary to meet the fully authorized volume of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Has required EPAC Section 303 with the Department of Energy will list limited to review with the potential new site of the expansion of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to the site of the Department of Energy addresses of the 1992 of the draft of the EIS and in site of the proposed of the state of the which the Department of Energy has previously studied the site. The following 5 sites that met the conditions were considered to be draft of the EIS. Richton, MS, Stockton Ridge, Texas, which were drafted in 1992, drafted the EIS, Chattahoochee, Clover, Louisiana. Governor of Louisiana requested Secretary of Energy considered. Bruinsburg, MS, for the Governor of Mississippi requested the Secretary of Energy considered. On September 1st, 2005, the Department of Energy issued the notice of intent to prepare the environmental impact statement. The notice of the intent of the Department of Energy proposed to expand storage capacity with the 3 to 4 existing strategic petroleum reserve storage sites of development of one of the new storage sites of the Gulf Coast region. The Department of Energy completed the public scoping process on December 19, 2005. On May 19, 2006, the Department completed the issue of the draft of the environmental impact statement addressing the potential expansion of the 3 existing strategic petroleum reserve sites with the 5 new site candidates. The main environmental risk of the project related to the facility development of wetland area of the brine disposal of pollution, mining operations, air quality impact, potential oil spill. In the evaluation selection of the site of the expansion of the Department of Energy will use the primary criteria: strategic petroleum reserve, the distribution capability of the project, technical rates, geological, technical construction, hurricane, environmental impacts, projected life cycle costs. In addition, the Department of Energy decision making did take the consideration potential operational impacts associated with existing commercial operations. Assumption: the strategic petroleum reserve expansion project will be made for continuing with the same major policies utilized with the implementation of the current 700 million barrel reserve that included U.S. government ownership of the storage facility with the petroleum of the centralized Gulf of the coast of the reserve and underground salt dome storage technology, crude oil storage only. The strategic petroleum reserve will continue to develop the storage of petroleum and underground salt dome formation within the Gulf of the facility that provide the highest security, safety, lowest environmental risk, lowest development and operational costs for the large petroleum stockpiles. Strategic Petroleum Reserve currently has 4 storage types combined with a capacity of 727 million barrels. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve expansion project will increase the petroleum reserve storage capacity from 727 million barrels to 1 billion barrels. The maximum Strategic Petroleum Reserve drawdown rate of 4.4 billion barrels per day, approximately 6 million barrels per day. Strategic Petroleum Reserve will give the first consideration expansion existing with which of the capitalize with existing size of the infrastructure of the operation, thereby minimize the development time of the construction and operation costs of one or more of the new sites will need to be developed to achieve the 1 billion barrel capacity. Total storage capacity of the existing one new sites will not be limited to approximately 250 billion barrels due to the security issue limitation with the commercial distribution. Constraint and technical risk. The technical risks associated with the development and operation salt dome storage facilities are considered relatively minor. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve Program has developed 5 salt dome storage sites for the 1976 to 1991. The Storage Petroleum Reserve Project Management Office has considered experience in the design, construction, cabin solution, mining, operation, salt dome storage sites with experience with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve that has learned with the number of the lessons standardized and design and number of the areas which will apply with the new site, mobility control system, pumping system, cavern well dwellings, designs, security system, brining, storage tanks, etc. Strategic Petroleum Reserve utilized with the Canadian National Laboratory of the Geotechnological Program support. The lab has done site characterization of existing strategic petroleum reserve sites to ensure the good salt dome integrity with its stability will provide additional geotechnological study to ensure the integrity and stability with the new sites. CND has also done extensive study with the solution mining developed for the computer program to develop the new caverns to control the size of the shape of the caverns. There's no advanced technology in the construction and storage facilities. Storage petroleum Strategic Petroleum Reserve to utilize the existing petroleum industry with the technology in which most of it is off-shelf technology. Safety risk. The risk of the injury or the death of the work of the construction of the new domes would be similar to the work of the industrial environment that offshore drilling operates. The risk will be described and analyzed with the risk assessment for the expansion of the preserve of the new critical decision documentation. Cost risk. There's always cost risk of the major project. The current project has been with the base of the completed conceptual design, including 25% contingency with according to the Department of Energy cost estimating guidelines. One major cost risk of the future cost of the drilling construction material for the labor of the petroleum industry due to the increased demand for the oil exploration of the oil industry for the current host of drilling has been more than tripled in the last 2 years. The cost of the material labor have been double. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve cost estimates have been based on these escalated prices. Scheduled risk. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve project with expansion of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to $1 billion will be completed by the 2019 achievement of the schedule depends largely on the receiving the necessary funding by Congress. Alright, legal risks. There are no legal or litigation issues that would affect the planning of the execution of the project. Section 154A of the EPCA would provide for the creation of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve capable of storing 1 billion barrels of petroleum. Section 159F of the authorized security energy in order to develop the reserve that acquire the necessary land, interest with land, purchase for the condemnation of the otherwise to construct the purchase, leave the otherwise acquire storage and related facilities. Sample plutonium disposition plan approach 2003 the Assistant Secretary of Environmental Management requested Savannah River Operating Officer for the primary for perform feasible study with the verification of plutonium to be identified with existing Savannah Riverview site facility would be provided. The installation verification capability of the study has been completed with the purpose of the verification capability should be installed within the sea area complex. Remember the extension of the Defense Waste Processing Facility, the operation impact with the site, critical path to closure for the Savannah River Operations Office, and the requesting initiative of the project to install the plutonium visibility capability with the K area and the K area complex of the verified access of plutonium to the Savannah Riverview site. The K area complex with a design to build the operator of the nuclear production reactor. One completion of the production mission of the facility was placed in cold standby condition for more than 10 years. Facility current serves the Category 1 nuclear material storage facility has a planned storage mission capability until capacity to propel approximately 2020. Materials currently stored in the K area complex include the unirradiated high enriched uranium, heavy water, and plutonium. Current plans call for the removal of the unirradiated high-enriched uranium in calendar year 2007. Addition with a small group of the materials stored with adjacent storage areas to the materials described that they do not occupy a significant portion of the facility of the Savannah Riverview site of the plutonium verification project. The K area complex will install the equipment listed below, but will perform modifications of facility and structure indicate with the plutonium verification process broke down with the following building blocks: material receipt, oxidization, feed, preparation, milling, mixing, verification, bagless transfer of the magazine, loading, storage, and canister, loading and shipping to the WFP, modification, non-nuclear material handling, waste handling, loading, balance of the plant, and the disassembly of the green fuel alternate. Department of Energy chartered with the team and they evaluate the option of immobilization, surplus weapons, usable plutonium, and a list of the overall 70 technology immobilization forms of an assembled list with further consolidated the grouping technology forms into related categories and 16 distinctive immobilization forms resulted. 16 forms were ranked in the barosilicated glass, titanium-based ceramics, and glass bond zeolite banked, being ranked at 1, 2, or 3 respectively. Following the ranking profit, the recommended for the barosilicated glass, titanium-based ceramics will be further proposed. The team also determined 5 means in which the both glass and ceramic immobilization forms could be dispositioned to meet these spent fuel standard. 5 disposition methods include glass can in canister, where smaller cans of the plutonium gas could be produced in a immobilization facility with a disposition high level of waste glass container in which small cans were surrounded with a high level of activity waste glass ceramic canister, where small cans of the plutonium ceramic would be produced in the immobilization facility with a disposition high level of waste level of glass canister, in which small cans were surrounded by high activity waste glass. Glass produced a junction with a DWPF melter with a glass to contain the plutonium. The radioactive Cs would be produced with a melter co-located with the current DWPF melter. Glass produced with the Greenfield facility with a new facility would be built with the producing glass, plutonium, and radioactive C ceramic. Greenfield facility and the new facility would be built with the ceramic, plutonium, and radioactive carbons. 5. The disposition variance with the rare of the evaluated glass and ceramic canister of the canister variant with the word determined to be most cost effective with the offer of the higher degree of the timeless implementation higher than have the higher technical feasibility. Should also be noted that both ceramic glass forms were thought to be viable to peer review panel. The panel noted with the limited information currently available to indicate that both baseline glass for the ceramic form for the potential for the provide acceptable waste form for the timely accomplished for the objectives of the disposition mission. The panel does not anticipate any showstoppers in implementing either approach. Assumption pertaining to Vidi's capability is assumed to be located with the Savannah River site, while other sites of the nuclear facility capable of being modified to accept the installable equipment to provide the functional operable facility that would require the packaging, shipping, and receipt of the plutonium to be on with the capability of the venue site with a particular closure site. Where introducing plutonium for the treatment is considered politically impractical. Further, the Savannah River site has the operational HLW with the verification capability necessary to meet the plant fuel standards. Constraints technical risk. Ultimately, both ceramic and glass forms were deemed to be viable with the peer review panel, with the panel noted the information available to both the baseline glass and ceramic form for the potential to provide acceptable way for the form is timely accomplished for the objective of the disposition means. Panel does not anticipate any showstoppers implementing either approach, be it both were the draw over the same and about the same level of technical maturity, and the technical issues were manageable. Principal technical issue identified with the glass for the development of the high temperature induction heat plated plutonium melter with the technical risk, however, the mean now been significantly mitigated throughout the following the development efforts of the melter system with American and Curium verification program. Preliminary technical uncertainties associated with the ceramic was the ability to produce the consistently demonstratable acceptable product across expected ranges of field. The uncertainty becomes even more pronounced in the current Office of the Environmental Management Plutonium Disposition Material Study, where the smaller quantity of the petroleum were highly impurity levels were anticipated as feeds. Additionally, the panel concluded the respiratory acceptance of the glass on the glass should be certified by building existing methodology for the higher level of waste glass. However, the demonstration of the consistent performance of the qualification ceramic would be more complex due to the heterogeneous nature of multi-crystalline phases, crystalline ceramics. Safety risk. Plutonium verification would be nuclear operation conducted with the nuclear facility. The risk work would include the lowest risk associated with the nuclear facility, radiation exposure, those working with a complex mechanical, chemical, thermal process, the nature of the risk. These facilities are well understood with the Department of Energy of the strategic Savannah River system. Risk to publicly induce the radiation exposure to the accidental release radioactive material that would be dispersed outside of the facility would be designed to mitigate these risks through well understood safety programs of the development and improve the work of the public protective criteria based on nuclear safety analysis. Cost risk. There are always cost risk of the major project. The current project cost range is believed sufficient to cover the tenant project risk. One of the major cost risks is associated with the relatively mature technology associated with the verification of plutonium. The technology has not been deployed with the production scale before. As discussed above, the risk is believed to be manageable. Schedule risk of the Plutonium Viticus is projected to complete operations by end of 2015. Achievement of the schedule depends largely on the receipt of the necessary funds from the Congress. Ability addressing technology risk successfully. Uncertainty associated with the Plutonium Viticus project is reflected in the cost range. Legal risk is included the potential litigation site of South Carolina in the event of the agreement to remove the plutonium from the Savannah River State or not achieve the project schedule is designed to achieve the disposition of the material in expenditures manner. Or a sample reach over the schedule of the forecast section provided samples of the guidance only whether or not based on the reference information. Sample were extracted with the existing mission need statement that's altered to fit with the suggested content contained in the mission with need statement guide. Sample 1, plutonium disposition project with the planning with the ULO of the DWP over the canister of the disposition vehicle from the plutonium gas as well, providing security during the source transportation because of the canister self-protecting. Therefore, the conceptual design must be completed in fiscal year 2006. Sure verification of the plutonium is completed by 2008. The project must include the fiscal year of the 2006 of the budget request to ensure funds and available congressional approval that has been obtained with the prior to the initiate of the conceptual design, which is greater than $3 million. ROM cost estimate through $300 million, estimated range up to $700 million, estimated cost needs to proceed CD1 with the $10 million, estimated $2 million more current funding and amount with the $8 million funding profile fiscal year of the upcoming fiscal years 08 and 12 planning windows contained in the chart below. It shows the 5-year period of this. Alright, you have in your petroleum operations. That basically went over the Department of Energy's mission needs statement guide.